giving us this opportunity to be here. And, really great to see Nolan here as a wonderful photographer. Heard a lot about you, Nolan. And just for everybody's knowledge, we are here graced with our Honorable Minister, C. Subhash Desai, who is the Minister of Social Welfare, Government of Goa, and who has the complete mind towards creating inclusion and creating an inclusive Goa. And one of the greatest examples of that is the upcoming event, which is named as International Purple Fest Goa, which would be happening from the 8th till the 13th of January 2024. And at this juncture, I would really believe that it is a great opportunity, as Youth for Jobs by itself is a very integral part for the whole curation of the upcoming event. Thanks a lot for giving us this opportunity. Yes, Shivman. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Taha. May I now invite Honorable Minister Shri Subhash Pal Desai to address the audience.
Namaskar. At the outset, invite you all for this curtain raiser for Purple Festival. On this occasion, we have amongst us Madam Mira Shenoy, again, who's a key partner in our Purple Festival, International Purple Festival. The other dignitary, the inspirational speaker, the amazing achiever, Mr. Nolan, photographer by his profession, who has done wonders, and hats off to his creativity. And we have heard a lot about him and his creativity and his connect to in the disability sector and otherwise also. So let me tell you something about Purple Fest, which had happened last year for 3 days. Only in 3 days we could achieve a lot and draw attention of whole world. And the Honorable Prime Minister also appreciated this event. In every meeting, he's praising it, and he's asking all the states to go in for Purple Fest kind of thing to motivate and inspire the Divyangs from this country. So this year we have lots of things for in the Purple Festival, and which is termed as an International Purple Festival, wherein we have partners internationally joining us, collaborating with us to make this Purple Fest a big success. So as you are aware, we have lots of things like educational programs, sports program, cultural programs, and empowering this placements, summits. All these things is happening in 8 days. We will be having over 25 conventions, wherein we will have panel discussion, in conversation, master classes, all those things which could be done in order to get a good policy for the Divyangs and person with disabilities, a good act which we could recommend the central government and the state governments to go in for such a kind of thing, wherein the person with disabilities would live a dignified life, and they will have their rights, and there should not be any stigmatization, or there should not be any discrimination, and they will live a dignified life. For that purpose, framing policies, we will get recommendation from all these conventions. We will have another 10 experience zones, which we have never seen at a place, at one place. So that will be another amazing thing that we're going to exhibit. Then there are exhibitions wherein a lot of NGOs are going to participate, a lot of startups that you would see emerging, helping all those disability sectors. Aids and appliances, then instruments, the implants, the devices, which could make the life of a person with disabilities much easier and healthier. There would be some pavilions which would focus on education and the universal designs facilitating the PWDs. We will also have all fun fair or funful activities, wherein we will have different kinds of cultural programs from amongst performed by the person with disabilities, yoga courses, cruise ride or sea ride, all these things will come, and that would be a fun and entertainment to everybody. All this time, whoever have not enjoyed or have exposed to such kind of environment, Goa would be open for all of this, sea ride also. So we will have some events also in between the evening cultural programs that would be full of entertainments. We will have an experience of accessible Goa and its beautiful beaches. The most accessible things that we would see in Goa, and how any state can become a model state. We have a dream to showcase that Goa is going to be a fully inclusive, wherein the person with disabilities will have no problems. They will have full access and accessibility for the education in the government buildings, in the schools, and wherever they go, they will find Goa is much accessible. So this is a dream that we are trying to put in dream. Goa being a touristic state and a small state, having a good administration, and a government of Goa is again backing for all these activities which we are going to showcase. So Goa would very soon be expected to be fully accessible, inclusive. You know, with these few words, there are a lot of other things. We will be having a para national or a para athletic meet, wherein about 2,000 athletes would come down to Goa and experience and participate in beautiful games designed for all these things. So any person with disabilities will have no problems in Goa. We will have volunteers to accompany you, and we have designed and curated all these activities within 6 days of time, starting from 8th of January till 13th of January next year, 2024. So once again, I welcome you all for the Purple Fest happening in Goa, International Purple Fest happening in Goa, and experience a different kind of experience altogether in 6-7 days. And we will work together to make the whole world, rather than would say that Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the whole world is family, one earth, one family, one parivar kind of thing. And we would extend whatever whatever exhibitions that are coming here, and the new innovative ideas, new innovative implants or instruments or devices which are placed here to overcome the disabilities, that will be exhibited here, and people will find everything at one place. This is the kind of International Purple Fest that we are going to have in Goa. So my appeal to everybody, this is an inclusive fest, International Purple Fest, wherein there would not be any barriers for other people also, other than the PWDs. So I welcome all of you to join and register yourself, become a delegate, and experience a beautiful International Purple Fest in Goa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister Sir, for your valuable words. It was a pleasure to have you here. Now, handing over to Anuja to take it forward.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anuja. Thank you, Shimohan. I think Shimohan has given a very wonderful introduction, and I'm just taking it forward from there. Now we have a speaker that we all of us have been waiting for to hear, and that's none other than Nolan Tro. A little something about Nolan. His work has been published and recognized internationally. The most of his recent many honors is being a 2024 Light Work Artist in Residence. His writing and photos are published in The New Yorker, The New York Times, and The Nation, as well as many other international outlets. His work is in the permanent collections of the Museum of Fine Arts Houston and the Museum of the City of New York. It is with great pleasure I invite Nolan to address the gathering and interact today with the national audience. May I also request all the attendees to drop your questions in the chat box. We shall be taking these questions towards the end of the presentation. Over to you, Nolan.
Oh. Thank you for the introduction. It's really great to be here in front of all of you. I want to thank Youth for Jobs, the U.S. Consulate for bringing me, for the nice introduction, to the government of GOA for putting on Purple Fest. Um, I wish I was going to Purple Fest. It sounds really cool. Um, yeah, it sounds like a really cool event that would be really cool to photograph and attend. Um, so I'm sure that it will go really well, and it's nice to know that there are governments out there like in Goa that are striving to make the world a more accessible place and to put on events like Purple Fest. That's really cool. So yeah, with all that said, yeah, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. I have a small presentation. One second. Go. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So as it was said earlier, my work has been published in the New York Times, which is kind of where I got my start with photography. Um, I moved to New York to pursue my graduate degree in sociology, and I didn't formally study photography, but during my time in New York City, I did take a photography class, and it was a photojournalism class that was about documenting everyday news events, sort of like daily news or photojournalism. And during that time, photographing in my free time, it's pretty much all I did. So I was photographing my friends who are in most of these pictures. Like even in this picture is my friend Alex, and he's going down the stairs backwards in his wheelchair because the elevator at the subway station was out of service. So the only way he could catch the train was to go down the stairs backwards and then 4 flights of stairs to catch the train. Um, and then this is when we got on the train. But yeah, when I moved to New York, I wasn't really too focused on disability. I was taking this class and I was just photographing my friends and what we were doing as wheelchair users, just normally. And it wasn't until one of my professors pointed out that there's not a lot of representation of people with disabilities in media, in stories, in journalism, in film, pretty much any sector of society you look at, even in job sectors and educational sectors, management positions, you don't really see a lot of wheelchair users or people with disabilities. So my professor pointed out the importance of the photographs I was taking, which at the time I didn't think critically about it, but what he basically told me was that I was showing a community that hadn't really been seen before. People hadn't seen these types of pictures before, and that they were really important. So he put me in contact with someone from the New York Times, and this photo you're looking at here, my friend Andy Ambo, he's cleaning his son's chin. He's a bilateral amputee. He lost both of his legs in a car accident. But the first story I ever did was about him and how he was going to school to create a more affordable prosthetic for people because in the United States they're very expensive. And this was the first friend I ever made was my friend Alex, and he has tattooed on his head the disability symbol. And he was the one that sort of brought me in and showed me my community and all my friends and showed me the importance of documenting it. Um, when I started publishing stories, before I was ever a photographer, I was a writer. And I realized that through writing, it was a smaller audience. There weren't as many people who were going to sit down and maybe read a 10,000 word paper that I wrote about disability in America or accessibility because it's too much text. The only people who are really going to read that are academics or people who are in graduate schools, or maybe a very select few group of people would actually read something that was a few thousand words long without any photographs. So when I started to publish work, I noticed that the photographs were really what would grab people's attention. It wasn't so much the text. We live in a very visual society where I think over 1 trillion images are uploaded to the internet every day. So people are very, very visually literate. It's one of the main ways in which people communicate. Snapchat, Instagram, social media. It's very much visually based. There's not a lot of text. Even Twitter, you can only put so many characters, and it's really about the visuals. Um, so that's when I realized if I kept taking photos, I could talk about the issues of my community. I could talk about disability rights. I could talk about access. I could talk about what was needed in the city without, putting too many words. And I realized that the pictures could really speak for themselves. And I wouldn't need 5 or 10,000 words to tell a story. I could put 20 pictures with a few hundred words and it would get the point across. So for me, I've realized that photography is a very useful method of storytelling. It's a very useful method of storytelling in regards to social justice and disability rights and human rights movements. Um, Through photography, you can talk about so many issues, whether it's accessibility, whether it's education, whether it's the medical system, like in this photograph here of my friend Alex, or the failure of those institutions. That's what we kind of do in America in the social justice scene is how can we use photography as a means for social justice? And what I found is that it's a very, very productive and useful tool in telling stories about social justice because it's a way to keep people's attention. If you go up on stage and just speak without any visual aids, or if you're just writing long, long articles without visual aids, it's very hard to keep people's attention. But when you add visuals to it, not only does it act as a source of evidence to prove what people are going through, whether it's accessibility issues or struggles or protests or whatever it might be, um, it is a form of evidence. And so when you combine this form of evidence with written experience, with lived experience, and you show it to people publicly and you use it as such evidence to prove that there are needs for a community that aren't being met, it's very hard to deny that that's true because the photographs are really acting as a sort of undisputable evidence. And, it was photographs have really been a way for me to not just show what the community needs when it comes to a more political or social justice lens. I think the word social justice can be many things. I think justice is a very big word. I think also truth is a very big word. And there's social justice that takes place in the law books. Like in America, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that is a law that's in the book that holds governments and powers accountable to make the world a more accessible place. However, there is a whole other realm of justice that I think takes place outside of the law books, because there's plenty of laws that exist that get broken every day. Just because there's a law in the book doesn't mean that people are going to follow it or break it. And I found with the ADA that many people try to find loopholes around accessibility and the ADA all the time. So there's another form of justice in which I believe is how we treat one another as people. It's how you treat your neighbor. It's how you treat someone in public that you don't know, a total stranger. And so through some of these images, um, really wanted to show how people with disabilities are just people as well, and that we just want to be treated as such, that we want to be seen as people who have the same dreams, hopes, wishes as anybody else does, because I think to be seen as an equal, as a human being regardless of a disability, that to me is a form of justice that regardless of the laws that exist in the book, to be seen by your peers in society without disabilities who are non-disabled, to be seen as someone that's not separate or outside of society, or someone that is equal, um, is extremely important. And so through these photographs, I also wanted to show those moments of daily life, love, pain, beauty, mundane things, friends hanging out. All of those things were very important um, because there is so little representation of disability in film, TV, photo, photographs, written stories. Um, the stuff that's out there a lot of time paints people with disabilities in a way that is very centered around pity and sympathy, and is not rooted in empathy. Um, and so through photography, I realized, okay, I can show the very political side of things, which I'll show right here. Um, this is something I did recently. Uh, it was published in the New Yorker not too long ago. Um, and these are photos of a protest that I covered in Washington, D.C. for they were trying to cut Medicaid funding and cut the housing bill for people with disabilities so that people couldn't live independently and would be sort of forced to live in nursing homes. So, there is the side of photography that's very personal and is about justice in the way we treat each other. And there's showing an accessibility through subway systems and things of that nature. And then there's also showing the very direct political action that people take in protesting for their rights. Um, and so this was taken a few months ago when I was down in DC. And it was one of the first times I'd been to such a large protest that involved all people with disabilities, mostly wheelchair users, which you don't see very often. Um, so this was a really big moment for me in my career as a photographer, as a storyteller, to witness things like this, because while showing pictures of subway systems or elevators or schools or the everyday moments of people, I think it's also important to show these pictures as well of people actually taking political action, to go into a government building and, like this woman, to risk her freedom and to be arrested for standing up for her rights. Because in America, at least, a lot of what changes is done with nuance, but in some ways, it takes direct political action like this to form some kind of real change. Um, and yeah, this woman was dragged up by the police and arrested along with several other people for sitting in the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy's office, to protest the cuts to Medicaid and housing. So, um, with all of that said, my hope is that people can understand that photography, that storytelling can have a major impact, not just on social justice as it's seen through the eyes of the law, but also how we treat each other, how we connect, and that it's a very viable form of doing such. Photography is a very accessible medium. You don't need to have a DSLR camera or a thousands of dollars camera. Everyone has a mobile device, and everyone can publish their images online, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the social media is. So photography has become one of the most accessible mediums for social justice, for storytelling, to show the truths of a community in a way that is accessible. Mobile devices can have so many accessible features on them. So even people with visual impairments or hearing impairments can use mobile devices very seamlessly, very easily. It's instantaneous in publishing. You can take something and put it up right away. You can live stream something. And you see that a lot with citizen journalism and citizen activism. So, I think a lot of people sometimes forget that as accessible as photography is, it's not just a tool to take a selfie. It's not just a tool to document your food, but it is a storytelling method. You can show people your life. You can show things that are happening. You can take still photographs, or you can make a film. You can even edit it on your phone all at once. So, um, the way I've seen a lot of change or a lot of response in my country um, is when I am able to take these photos, to take these films, and to put them out and publish them in the world, because people take notice of it, and things do change when people actually see the hard evidence of a photograph of some injustice, or whether it's seeing a beautiful moment between a family where someone has a disability and they say, oh, well, people with disabilities actually aren't different than us. They're mothers and fathers and sons. And they have jobs and they want the same thing that we all want. And um, showing those things through photographs, I've found, is a very effective method to talk about equality in many terms, be it societal, political, social, or even beyond that. So, yeah, my hope is that anyone who's watching this can hopefully relay this information and understand that, yeah, photography is a very serious tool for storytelling, and it can be used to influence a lot of positive change in society. So, thank you very much for having me and listening to this presentation and looking at my photos. I hope that it was useful. And yeah, at this point, I guess I'll open up the floor to taking questions if anyone has any.
There's one question which has come in, Nolan, which is, why do you shoot only in black and white? The color is missing. Any particular reason?
Oh, yeah, I prefer to shoot in black and white. I do shoot colored too. Um, I tend to prefer black and white for, first off, no real practical reason other than I really like how it looks and I like the aesthetic of it from a creative choice. A lot of the photographers that I sort of learned from and looked at and grew from looking at their work were shooting black and white photography, and it had a really big impact on me personally. And then the more practical reason to it is that I've found when you eliminate color from a photo, I mean, black and white is still color, so but when you eliminate all the other colors of the rainbow, there tends to be more of a focus on what is happening within the photograph versus keeping the color elements. I've found can be distracting sometimes because people's eyes will go to a bright color, or they'll be more focused on the beautiful aspects of the colors in the photograph. And when you eliminate color, there tends to be more of a focus on the action happening within the frame of the photograph. And so for a lot of the work I do, I find that I'm trying to get people to pay attention to what's happening in the photograph itself, the actual emotions, the people in the photograph versus any other things that could be distracting, like color palettes or a really bright highlight or something like that that can it can be distracting. And I think there are projects that I do shoot in color if color is a really big part of the story, then I will shoot it in color. But if I'm looking at a story and I'm saying, oh, for me, it's less about color and it's more about what's happening in the image, then most of the time I'll photograph in black and white for that reasons.
We have 4, 5 questions, so let's see how many we can take. Jayanti asks, you've traveled in India. Have you taken any photographs in Hyderabad itself, which you can show?
I have taken some photographs in the last couple of days I've been here. They're on my film camera. It's analog film cameras, so they're not digital, so I don't have them on my, like, I'm not available to show them. But and I haven't really had much time to like walk around and explore. I've pretty much been driving from one engagement to the next. So there are some photos that I've taken while I've been driving around. Um, this morning, I took some photographs of a man walking some cattle through the street, and there was some bikers going around him, and I just thought it was a really beautiful moment. And I saw this mural by the airport when I was coming in, and I really liked the way it was painted, and it was on the side of the highway next to this rock. And so I haven't taken much. I would like to take more because for me it's very different from where I live in America. So visually is very interesting to me.
Visibility impact your creative process as a photographer in any way?
Sometimes I think. I think about that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question. I sometimes when I do an assignment, I'll think about how much time or energy it's going to take to complete the assignment. So, I can walk, but I also use a wheelchair. So if I know that I'm going to be out for a long time during the day, or I have to go a lot of places, or like I showed the protest photography, I knew that was going to be a very long day. So in those instances, I'll bring my wheelchair with me so I can get around and um, get to where I need to go. And if I need to take a break, I can have a place to sit that's comfortable. Um, so, but then I get up and photograph, and I do. I don't know. I don't think it actually impacts the taking of the picture so much. Um, I think sometimes I feel like I might have less energy than someone else just because it does take a lot of energy for me to travel places because of inaccessibility. Whereas someone might just be able to hop on the train really easily, really quickly. And, I have to go down the block and take an elevator, go across the ramp and so certain things that are easier for people who like physically who don't have disabilities, sometimes it takes me a lot more energy to complete those things. Although when I do get to where I'm photographing, I'm usually so caught up in it that I, s- I just have like infinite energy anyway. So yeah, I guess in some way it sort of impacts it, but not a ton, I don't think.
The next question is, does that happen that you take many photographs and then delete them, or do you actually plan the kind of um, the kind of instance which you want to shoot and then click, or do you imagine the
Hmm.
instance and then click?
I think it depends on the situation. When I'm out photographing in the world or at a protest or people's lives, I try not to, I don't interfere with it at all. I just let things happen. So I have an idea in my head of what might happen, especially when I'm at an event where I know certain things are going to happen. In my head, I'll sort of imagine if I'm at my friend's gym and he's boxing someone else in a wheelchair, then I might know, okay, at some point, two people in a wheelchair are going to be boxing, probably in this area. So I can start to imagine how I want that to look or where I would stand when I take the photograph. Um, but then there's so many unknowns. Like when I was at the protest in DC, they're so unpredictable. You really have no idea what's going to happen. So you just sort of put yourself in a position, or I put myself in a position to where I know there will be things happening. I just don't know what those things are. So I can try to prepare and think about how I want to photograph something. Um, but I never delete anything. Um, I take a lot of pictures, and usually, you know, 8 to 15, maybe 20 images get used in a publication. But when I went to the DC protest, I think I took 275 pictures, but they only used, I think, 13 or 14. So that's what is that, 5%? But yeah, I never delete them because just because they were used in that kind of publication, in an editorial publication, um, photos can take different lives. I mean, if I made a photo book of just that day, then I could use 50 pictures. And so a picture that might not be in the New Yorker or the New York Times article, I can use in a book or something. So I'm never really deleting pictures. I am careful when I take photos. I think when I look through the viewfinder, especially because I shoot analog, there's only 36 pictures on a roll of film. So I have to be careful about when I click the shutter. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit of imagining it. It's a little bit of seeing what happens and just kind of going with it. Um, and I think most of the time it works out pretty well.
So Benedicta asks, Nolan, can you give us a few tips on photography for aspiring photographers, especially deaf children who are visual learners?
Mm. Yeah, I think probably deaf learners would probably make very interesting photographs. I'm sure they have a level of visual literacy that is even different from me, because if they're solely visual learners, they're probably experiencing photographs in a way that even I can't begin to imagine, and I'm sure it's at a very deep level. Um, and I think the best advice I can really give anybody is just to photograph a lot. Um, when I was first learning photography or learning how to tell stories with photography, uh, I just would photograph every single day, and I still do. I mean, I don't go anywhere without my camera on me, and so I think it's like anything. If you think about, I think a good metaphor is weightlifting. The more you lift a weight, the stronger you're gonna get, the bigger your muscle's gonna get, and your eyeball and the camera is really like a muscle. Um, the more you use it and the more repetition, and you're just gonna get better. You're gonna figure out what you like and what you don't like, and what you think works and what you think doesn't work. And um, so I think repetition is very important, and I also think to just be open-minded. Don't worry about making mistakes or taking bad pictures. I think it's really important to keep an open mind about photography, and that it's actually really great to be a beginner. And actually, some of the photos that you might not like now, you might look back on in 5 years and you might love them. And I think it's really important to just go for it. Like, don't think about what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. It just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Um, it's really subjective. Photography is subjective. It's an art form. It's a form of expression. So for anyone that's inspiring to photograph and make pictures, it's just, don't worry about what anyone thinks about your stuff. Just make pictures because you love it, and the rest will come along. I'm very sure of that.
Krishna asks you, how did you become a part of the Magnum?
Oh, Magnum Foundation.
Yeah, that's right. I suppose that's what he means.
Yeah. So yeah, I've gotten a couple grants through the Magnum Foundation, um, and the way I got the grants was like I applied. So they have open calls, and the way I've gotten a lot of grants or awards in photography is by applying to these foundations or these residence programs or prizes. You have to apply to them. So with the Magnum Foundation, I applied to their photography and social justice program, which they do annually once a year. I think they select 9 to 12 people or something. But yeah, I got together a project, and it was a work in progress. And I wrote a proposal saying why I would like the Magnum Foundation to help me complete this project and how they could do that. So, it's a matter of having a project and having a goal and knowing how a place like Magnum Foundation can help you achieve your goal. And if you can communicate that clearly and you have photographs that also communicate that need, um, and you can illustrate how the Magnum Foundation can help you achieve that, um, then I think that's what any sort of grant or award or school or residence is looking for, is why us specifically, because there's a million places you can apply for grants or for money or whatever. And I think it's really important to let people know why specifically you're applying to them and what is it specifically about your work that can benefit from working with a specific partner on that project.
There's one more question. Someone asked whether you had any advantages as a person with disability in capturing images. Is this also sometimes an advantage?
I I don't know. I think I don't know. I don't know if it's an advantage. I think sometimes I tend to, again, I guess in some ways I do move a little bit slower than other people in some regards. So I think, and even just in life, I mean, outside of photography, I think since I have my injury and since acquiring my disability, I've had to learn a lot more patience in life just because things don't happen instantaneous for me anymore. Just for instance, the other day when I was traveling here, um, getting through security at the airport with my wheelchair, it takes a long time, and getting on and off the plane takes a long time. Um, and so, people are just walking off and they're off and on and off and on, and I have to wait until they bring my wheelchair up from under. Um, you know, when I go certain places, I have to wait. There's a lot of waiting involved, um, especially when it comes to traveling, and just a lot of things in life. I have to be patient with because I can't move as fast as I used to. Um, and leaving the house, I have to make sure I have everything I need: my wheelchair, my catheters, medicines, just a million things. So I have to really prepare and think about every time I leave the house if I have everything I need. And so I think the main advantage I've had, not just in photography, but probably more in life, is learning patience, um, and learning how to take my time with things and not rush as much. I think, especially in Western society in America, there's this big, push and movement to everything has to be done right away, nonstop working, constantly hustling, and trying to get, post every day on this and that, and it's just like this rat race. And yeah, just my life, it doesn't work like that, and it's taught me a lot of patience in that regard, even with projects I'm working on. really in no rush to get these things done, and I really feel comfortable with putting my work out into the world when I feel it's ready, and I don't feel a lot of pressure to do it if I don't feel comfortable with it. And I definitely learned that through having my disability. It definitely taught me um, to be patient and to be comfortable with what's happening before I just go ahead and do it, which I think has really helped me out in life a lot.
So, Nolan, I think there are lots and lots of people who are saying very good things, how enthused they were, lovely pictures, eagerly awaiting to meet you at the Purple Fest itself. Okay. So, on that brilliant note, I think we will end today's meeting. Anuja will give a vote of thanks. After that, Taha from the Commissioner's office will join to give a personal invitation to the Purple Fest.
That'd be cool.
Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, Mira. I think, Nolan, it's been an amazing time that we got to spend with you to listen to your side of story, how you share messages, tell stories via photography. And storytelling is an art, and it has a different way of reaching to the audience. And what you do is amazing. The pictures, and I think many of the people in chat box were saying the pictures are so good, so amazing. So it's truly inspiring. Thank you so much for being with us. For it was pleasure having you with us with the entire team, and hope to see more and more photographs from your end. And thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to thank the US Consulate Hyderabad for being part of this event, and a heartfelt thanks to Honorable Minister Shri Subhash Desai and Taha, Government of Goa, for gracing today's event. And thank you, Sheraton Hotel, for hosting this event. And yeah, thank you again, everyone. Over to you, Taha. Would you like to?
Yes, Taha. Is it
Jyoti,
come?
can you hear me?
Uh,
Where do you want Jyoti?
yes, Jyoti.
Sorry, Anuja, just to say thank you to everyone for being here. And along with that, I'll welcome you to please register for the Purple Fest. Please be there. And Nolan, please try and come back and be a part of the Purple Fest. It's a great place to be in, a great place to celebrate disability. So we invite all of you to do that on behalf of the Government of Goa as well as Youth for Jobs Foundation.
Thank you very much to do this, and absolutely, it will be a great pleasure to have you all. And Nonel, I'll also request you to please be there, mark your calendars, and let us know. And let's be in Goa from the 8th till the 13th of January 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.